Hi, Lathe from Wineberry Hill here. I think we can all agree that the first rule of gardening is you need to give your plants water.
Like out the toilet?
I mean, it doesn't have to be out of the toilet, but yeah, that's the idea.
But Brondo's got what plants crave.
It's got electrolytes.
Like many of you, I have an incredibly tough watering situation. I am not on city water. I'm in the woods on a well. In this video, I'm going to detail how I automated the watering of my terraced gardens, my geothermal greenhouse, as well as the watering of my patio pots and planters. Over time, I ran into some tricky challenges. The three main ones being capacity or supply, pressure, and temperature. First up, capacity. When the system is running at full occupancy, it's over 210 plants, meaning 210 drippers. Now, if I wasn't running it on the system that I figured out, it would run my well dry very quickly.
Lip balm?
Second, pressure. With that many drippers, the system just wouldn't have enough oomph to push very much water out of those drippers. And third, temperature. For the greenhouse portion of the system, I need to run water to it year-round, but I'm unable to bury the water lines to prevent them from freezing. First up, the supply side of things. I have one of the outlets on my 4-way splitter dedicated to recharging the system, and I do this like many of you. I have a wireless RainPoint timer on a schedule. Now, for many of you, that's where the story starts and ends. You have a soaker hose, it comes on, it waters your garden, and you're done. But, as I mentioned, I don't have the pressure or capacity for that. So, at 5 a.m. every day, the RainPoint timer opens the hose bib. The hose is in a 2-inch pipe that's buried as deep and as much as possible all the way up to the greenhouse. Here in the greenhouse, the supply hose connects to a splitter. And one side of that splitter empties into a blue 50-gallon water barrel, and the other half goes out the wall of the greenhouse. Up the hill to a 275-gallon IBC tote. Now, on the supply end of each of these hoses, both the 275-gallon IBC tote and the 50-gallon barrel, I have float valves. This means once the 50-gallon barrel is topped up, the water stops going in and is diverted exclusively to the tote. And once the tote gets topped up, the water stops recharging the system. And one quick footnote, if you've seen my video on how I keep the greenhouse warm in the winter, you know that thermal mass plays a big role. And to that end, I have a second water barrel in the greenhouse. It's filled up from the upper one, and it also has a float valve. So once the water fills to the top, it stops getting recharged. Okay, so that covers the supply side. Let's talk about pressure. So let's start at the tote. The tote supplies water for pretty much all of the terraces, as well as the patio area with the pots and the planters down there. Now, this is called a gravity-fed system. And the basic idea is the higher the water supply is, the better the pressure is at the source that you're going to be using the water, in this case, the drippers. But that does present a problem for automation. Most automated timers use the pressure from the hose bib to open the valve. But on a gravity-fed system, the pressure right at the source is very low. It's not enough to open an automatic timer. And so what you have to do is get a timer designed for gravity-fed systems. In this instance, I'm using the Yardeen. And what it does is it has a motor inside of it that opens up the valve. And once I figured that out, I ran into another problem. The system would run great for a day or two, and then it would slowly lock up, almost like if there was a vacuum attached to the system. And it turns out there kind of was. You see, as water drained out of the system over the course of the day, the drippers would suck in air, and this would cause the system to get a vacuum lock. Now, it took me a while to figure that out, but once I did, it was actually a pretty cheap and easy solution. I just needed to add a couple strategically placed air bubbler relief valves. Okay, so that's half of the system, the terraces and the patio and things like that. What about the pressure in the greenhouse? I realized pretty quickly that having the water source only a couple feet above the garden resulted in weak pressure. So the solution was to put a literal pump, a sump pump, in the second barrel, the one that's on the ground. And so then I had great pressure, and I handled the watering schedule by just putting a smart outlet on the power source. I should also point out that the raised beds that are up around the greenhouse are also part of that system, and I can turn the water on and off by means of inline valves. This is also true of the seed starting area. The last challenge is temperature. I grow in the greenhouse year-round, but unfortunately, running a water line like on the surface of the ground up to the greenhouse wouldn't fly. Where I live in New England, the minimum frost depth is 42 inches. I would need to bury the water line 42 inches below the surface of the ground in order to prevent it from freezing. But that's just not possible. I have solid rock on my property. So the solution is I have a heated garden hose that runs from the hose bib all the way up to the greenhouse inside that 2-inch pipe. Additionally, when it gets really cold, I also have a heated line often used to heat hose bibs wrapped around the hose bib and the RainPoint timer. So there you have it. Now you know how I automated the watering of my terraced garden and greenhouse on a well. Now, I don't care what anyone says. If you made it to the end of this video, you are most certainly a member of an elite group of likely less than 10 people. Thank you. Also, if you made it to the end of this video, you might be interested in becoming a paying member of the channel where you get access to blueprints and guides, as well as one-on-one access to me. I mentioned in the past that commenting seems to be really important for the YouTube algorithm to notice my channel, so thank you for doing that. And as always, if you like this video, you might like these.